Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing a movie review for Francis Ford Coppola's new movie, Megalopolis. I watched this movie over the weekend, and I've literally been struggling to make a review for this film because I don't like making inherently negative videos. However, there's not a single part of this movie that I enjoyed. So I'm going to come on here. I'm going to go ahead and issue a spoiler warning, and we're just going to dive deep into this movie.
Modern movie review.
Alrighty, so before I get too far into this, I do want to talk about kind of the behind-the-scenes stuff for people who do not know why this movie was so important and why this movie seemed like it was going to be such a massive deal. This movie is a passion project from the director, Francis Ford Coppola, who has made some incredible movies throughout the years. His movie, The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2, are two of the most high-regarded movies in the history of cinema. So a lot of people had really high hopes for this movie, and it has a very star-studded cast. I mean, Giancarlo Esposito, Jason Schwartzman, Adam Driver plays the main character, Natalie Emmanuel's in this, Aubrey Plaza's in this, Shia LaBeouf. It's a very star-studded cast. And so, for the most part, a lot of people are looking at, this stuff on paper and are just like, okay, Francis Ford Coppola, an incredible director, and then, all those actors, they're like, it has a really good cast. This should be phenomenal. And it honestly is pretty terrible. It's genuinely really bad. And part of the reason I think that it is insanely bad is just it does a terrible job of fleshing out every single one of the characters. I watched this movie, I was wide awake, I was paying attention to it, I was literally locked into it, could not tell you a single one of the characters' names, could not really tell you the main point that any of the characters were really trying to get to, because here's the thing with this movie. We have Adam Driver is introduced in this film as kind of like a young political heartthrob. He kind of seems like he's supposed to be this rich philosophical man. He kind of gives off Tony Stark vibes, right? Comparing it to superhero movies real quick. He's giving off the vibes of somebody who's young and hot and up and coming. And he's running for mayor or some kind of political office in the New York City area. That's kind of what it seems like. And then we got Giancarlo Esposito, who's the old head. He's the person who's a political figure, who's been the political figure for a while. People are kind of tired of him, but he's the guy who gets the job done. At the end of the day, he might be boring, he might not be doing a lot to change stuff, but he's keeping the people safe. And that's kind of the two character archetypes we get in this movie. Everybody else doesn't even really have a character archetype. Aubrey Plaza shows up, her character description is basically just, hey, be hot, and that's what she does the entire movie. And it's so weird that none of these characters are really that fleshed out or have that much depth, and we don't really understand what their purpose is. And then another thing that I hate is this movie just kind of throws us right into it immediately, which is something that I feel bad for saying this because I feel bad for hating on this because I've always been the kind of person who's a lot of movies nowadays, they're spending 30 minutes introducing us to each of the individual characters, and it feels like a waste of time because you can just throw us into the plot and we can meet the characters as the story is going. And I think that that's what Francis Ford Coppola was trying to do with this movie, but we never really get a chance to really meet the characters and understand what their deal is. There's a lot of mystery around specific characters, and it ultimately just makes it harder for us to connect with those specific characters. Adam Driver, one of the few things we know about him is he has a wife that is diseased, and that's something that we know about him. We don't really have a general idea of how she died or how she passed away. Her entire body disappeared, which is a big deal, and everybody's oh my god, did he kill his wife and put him in this weird MacGuffin, which that's a whole other thing to complain about. Megalopolis is supposed to be this futuristic city. People can just dream of anything and it'll happen, right? And they are talking about how it was built using some magical material that he created called Megalopolis or something like that, right? They just throw Megalopolis on the fucking name of this thing, and that's supposed to be this magical ore that he can create anything with, and it can change with time or whatever. And they created this weird MacGuffin, and they literally named it something so similar to MacGuffin. And a lot of people are speculating that Adam Driver's character killed his wife and somehow used his wife's dead body to make this thing. It literally, none of it makes sense, and it's so it pains me because it's supposed to be this really big deal. It's supposed to have all these bold concepts and stuff like that, and it's miserable. They don't explain anything, and they just kind of expect the people who are watching to kind of make up their own answers for it. And it's just really lazy writing, in my opinion. And I feel the majority of this film feels just really lazy writing. That being said, the visuals are also painfully bad. There are some early on scenes in this movie where they're trying to show us, oh, this is what Megalopolis is going to look like. This is the dream. This is what we want Megalopolis to be. And they're showing us these random giant plants and stuff that are growing out of the ground, and we're seeing like this gigantic, like beautiful, like landscape around him. And when I tell you, it looks like something that would come out of the second Spy Kids movie where they're on like the weird island with all the mythical creatures and stuff like that. It genuinely looks like a Spy Kids movie. It's terrible CGI, it's terrible animation, and it's just like, this is a big theatrical release movie, and it feels like they put maybe like $20 into it. It looks so bad, and it's just really painful looking at movies that have significantly smaller budgets like Godzilla -1, and you're looking at the visual effects and stuff there, and you're like, wow, that's incredible, that feels all tangible, this actually seems real. And then you're looking at this and you're just like, this looks like a child could have drawn that. Like, everything about Megalopolis' visual effects and CGI is painfully bad. And I know a show that usually gets made fun of for their CGI is The Flash. I genuinely think it has better CGI than The Flash, and that's saying something, because the last couple seasons of The Flash, they had dudes that look like this running around. But yeah, overall, I think that the visuals are bad. I think the acting is bad. The pacing is absolutely terrible. A lot of the characters are inconsistent. Like, Adam Driver at the beginning of this movie has so much like confidence and like this mystery to him, and he seems like the kind of person who's very reserved and put off. And then like throughout the movie, he kind of like goes from that to being like super sassy, and he does drugs, and all of a sudden now he's really cool and hip. And there's like so much, like, he's supposed to be like this bad boy, and then like he never goes back to being like that bad boy, and it's so weird. And he's completely being babysat by Lawrence Fishburne's character the entire movie. There's so little character development by any of these characters, and it's so weird. The one time something exciting finally happened in the movie, Adam Driver's character got shot, and I was like, oh, finally something interesting is gonna happen. They immediately took the MacGuffin little mystery piece that I had mentioned earlier, the Megalopolis, whatever they called it, and just put it in his face, and then he was able to come back to life. And that solved the problem, and that was it. And then they just continued on with the movie, and it was just painfully bad. This movie genuinely feels like somebody started writing it 40 years ago, maybe forgot it existed for 10 years, added a little bit to it, came back 10 years later, added a little bit to it, and then was finally like, oh, you know what, let me just slap an ending on this and release it, because it's so poorly written. None of the stuff flows together. It's really, really bad. But yeah, that being said, that was it for this video, guys. If I had to give this movie a rating on a scale of 1 to 100, I gave it a solid like 12. There are some redeeming qualities. Aubrey Plaza playing somebody who's hot is cool. There are some funny moments. Like, I do think that Adam Driver delivers a couple of really funny lines. And then there's like some individual like lines of dialogue that are very poetic. Like, Lawrence Fishburne gets some lines of dialogue that I'm like, okay, where was this good writing the entire rest of the movie? But other than that, it's so incoherent. It's really painful. I would not recommend it to anybody. It's a very boring movie. But yeah, that being said, that was it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by, checking it out. If you liked it, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bow. Bow.